Greetings, everyone! The Springfield Symphony Orchestra is throwing a celebration tonight at the Clark State Performing Arts Center for Beethoven's 250th birthday, and you're invited! Let's go inside and see what we need to do to get ready for the party. Okay, in order to have the best party ever, we need some decorations, cake, balloons, presents, and music. But wait, where are all the instruments? We need to hurry up and gather everyone before Beethoven arrives. Oh look, here's Mr. Violin. He's just so incredibly excited for Beethoven's birthday party, he might just break a string. But in order for us to celebrate, Mr. Violin needs to find all our instrument friends so they can play Beethoven's Symphony No. 9 tonight, which features Beethoven's famous Ode to Joy melody. Let's go on a little adventure around the city of Springfield as we help Mr. Violin find all our instrument friends. But first, we need to learn a little bit about why Beethoven is so special. He is turning 250 after all. Let's learn a little bit about this awesome composer from the conductor of the Springfield Symphony Orchestra, Maestro Peter Stafford Wilson.
Oh, well, greetings, everybody. Welcome. I'm Peter Stafford Wilson, music director of the Springfield Symphony Orchestra, and I'm delighted that you've joined us for the 2020 Kidsfest. We're going to celebrate the 250th birthday of Ludwig van Beethoven. Is anybody out there 250 years old this year? Yeah, sometimes I feel like it, I really do. But anyway, who was Beethoven? Beethoven was probably the most important musical figure of all time. He was a composer, that is, he wrote music for the symphony orchestra. He was born in Germany, but moved to Vienna and spent most of his adult life in Vienna. In fact, his parents wanted him to be a very important, very famous composer, so they sent him to Vienna at an early age. He went there to study with another great composer of the time, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. But he got there and he discovered that Mozart had died. So he went to study with Franz Joseph Haydn, another important composer of the day. In fact, we remember Haydn as the father of the symphony. Not the symphony orchestra, but the form of the symphony, that large piece of music that has many, many important parts to it. Haydn wrote 104 of them. Beethoven would write 9. Now, Beethoven lived a very turbulent life. He was involved in politics and had very strong opinions about them. He was a very disheveled figure. His hair was all over everywhere, and he'd wander the streets of Vienna and shake his fist at people. In fact, people really thought he was crazy. They thought he was nuts, so they gave him very wide berth. But his music was very popular during his lifetime, which was kind of rare. Now, one very tragic thing happened to Beethoven. In about the middle of his life, he began to lose his hearing. And he wrote some of his most important music when he was completely deaf. At the end of his life, he wrote his final symphony, the Ninth Symphony, and in it is the Ode to Joy. Now, nobody had ever used a chorus with a symphony orchestra in a symphony before. So the Ninth Symphony was groundbreaking in that respect. So he took the words from the poet Friedrich Schiller and his Ode to Joy, a very crazy notion about all men living together in harmony and happiness, and literally all men are brothers. Beethoven had lost his hearing. But the very astonishing story is that Beethoven conducted the premiere, the first performance of this piece, the Ninth Symphony, the Ode to Joy. And the first clarinet player wrote an account of it that we still read today about the fact that the piece came to its triumphant end. But Beethoven kept conducting because he didn't think it was over yet. And literally one of the soloists had to turn him around to see the huge standing ovation that he was getting from the audience who had just heard this astonishing piece for the first time. So let's meet some members of the Springfield Symphony Orchestra and experience together the Ode to Joy.
Wow, Beethoven sounds like a really cool composer. It's going to be so awesome when the orchestra plays Ode to Joy at the party tonight. Alright, Mr. Violin has his map of Springfield, and he's ready to start looking for our instrument friends around town. But before we get going, we should learn a little bit about our friend Mr. Violin. Luckily, the concertmaster of the Springfield Symphony Orchestra, Sujin Kim, is here to tell us more.
Hello, I'm Sujin Kim, and I'm the concertmaster of the Springfield Symphony Orchestra. I'm going to tell you about the instrument that I play called the violin. There are 5 things that I'd like you to know about the violin. Number 1, the violin has 4 strings, and they have names. From lowest to highest, they are called G, D, A, and E. I can make more sounds or pitches by moving the fingers of my left hand on the strings on the fingerboard. Number 2, the violin is made of wood. From the scroll to the pegs, all the way down to the end button, front, sides, and back are made of different kinds of wood. Number 3, I can make the violin sing with the use of a stick that we call the bow. Here's my bow. Oh, there's a bow on my bow. The bow is made of wood and horsehair, and when the bow is drawn across the string, the strings vibrate, and that translates into the sound waves that then reach our ears. Number 4, the violin is the smallest of the orchestral string family, which includes the viola, cello, and bass. The violins and violas are very similar because we put them on our shoulders to play them. The cellos are bigger, so you sit for those, and the basses are the biggest of them all, so you have to stand to play the bass. They all have 4 strings, but the violin strings are the shortest, especially compared to the granddaddy bass strings. And so the shortest strings will give you the highest sounding pitches from the orchestral string family. Number 5, string players have a trick that we use to make our sounds extra beautiful, and it's called vibrato. Vibrato is when we take our fingers and we vibrate them. And what that does is to give the notes an extra polish or glitter. So without vibrato, a sound could be like this. And with vibrato, the sound is like this. I'd like to play for you a little bit of a piece you might recognize called Ode to Joy. It was written by one of the rock stars of classical music who was born almost 250 years ago in December. His name was Ludwig van Beethoven. Happy birthday, Beethoven.
Thank you, Sujin. Now that we have become acquainted with Mr. Violin, let's head to the Hartman Rock Garden, where we can meet his big sister, Ms. Viola. Wow, it's so beautiful here. This place includes over 250,000 individual stones that combine a mixture of history, religion, and Depression-era pop culture. And look, Miss Viola is here enjoying the beautiful garden on this gorgeous day. But she needs to head to COhatch Auditorium soon for Beethoven's birthday party. Let's learn a little bit about the viola from the SSO's principal violist, Jennifer Newmeyer.
Hi everyone, my name is Jennifer Newmeyer and I am the principal violist of the Springfield Symphony Orchestra. Today I'm going to show you my instrument. This is the viola. The viola is a string instrument. The body is made out of wood. These are called F-holes. You see they're kind of shaped like the letter F. Some of my students think it looks like an S, and they're right, it does. This is where the sound comes out of the instrument. And we get the sound out two different ways. We put it on our shoulder and we can either pizzicato the strings or pluck them like this. Or I can use this. This is called a bow. And that right there is horsehair. And we use this to pull the sound out of the strings like this. And the viola is a little bit bigger than the violin, and it has a deeper voice than a violin, but it's smaller than a cello. But sometimes I like to call it a chin cello because it has the same strings as a cello, but its voice is higher and you play it up here under your chin. So here's Ode to Joy. Happy birthday, Beethoven.
Thanks for showing us the viola, Jennifer. Learning about all these instruments sure can make someone hungry. How about we head to Leanne's Dairy Delight to get an ice cream cone, and maybe we'll see someone we know there. Yum! Ice cream is always the best when you're exploring the town, and it looks like Mr. Cello thinks the same. While we enjoy our ice cream before it melts, let's learn a little bit about the cello from the SSO's principal cello, Joe Mueller.
Hi there, my name is Joe Mueller. I am the principal cellist of the Springfield Symphony Orchestra. I'm going to share with you a few details about the cello. The cello is mainly made of wood. It's held up by this metal end pin. The cello bow is made of wood and horsehair, and I pull the horsehair across these metal strings on the cello, and the strings vibrate, and that's what causes sound to come out of the instrument. I'm going to demonstrate this now by playing Beethoven's Ode to Joy melody. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe, for showing us the cello while we finished our ice cream. But now we're so full. We probably need to go take a walk in Snyder Park to walk off some of this ice cream. Let's go. It's such a nice day for a stroll. And look, there's our favorite gentle giant, Mr. Bass. Looks like he's having a fun day feeding the ducks. Let's learn a little more about the bass from the SSO's principal bass, Tony Newmeyer.
Hello, I am Tony Newmeyer, principal double bass of the Springfield Symphony Orchestra. This is a double bass. It is the biggest of the string family, bigger than a violin, viola, cello. It's very heavy. This probably weighs about 30 to 35 pounds. You can sit to play it like I am, or you can stand and play. Most double basses have a 4-string. This one has a 5 strings, so it's a little bit different. It has a lower string, which makes it much lower. And it is the lowest sounding instrument. Happy birthday, Beethoven!
Wow, the bass is so big, we're not sure how Tony manages to carry it around. Now that we've had a relaxing stroll in the park, it's time to head to Winans and get some chocolate. What a surprise! Looks like our good friend, Mrs. Flute, is already enjoying a big basket of chocolates from Winans. Maybe if we're nice, she'll share some with all of us. While we enjoy the chocolate, let's learn about this shimmery instrument from the SSO's principal flute, Lori Akins.
Hello, my name is Lori Akins, and I am the principal flutist of the Springfield Symphony Orchestra. I would like to tell you a little bit about my instrument, the flute. The flute is a member of the woodwind family, and the woodwind family has a few other instruments in it as well, but my instrument is the only one that is actually not made out of wood. It is made out of silver and gold. Older flutes originally were made out of wood, but today we mostly see instruments of flutes that are made of silver or gold. My flute is also very special in the woodwind family because it's the only instrument that is held sideways. All the other instruments are out in front of the woodwind family. So my instrument is held sideways. Another fancy word for sideways is transverse, but we usually just say we're holding the flute sideways. Also, my flute has a lot of keys on it, and my fingers go on these keys. My thumb in the back is on a key, and my fingers in the front on the top are playing keys, and these, when I move my fingers, they make different pitches on, or different notes on the instrument. My flute also is a very high-pitched sound. So it goes very high, much higher than the other woodwind instruments. It's pretty high. Because it's so high, a lot of us like to call the flute a shimmery sound. We describe that flute sound as shimmer. So as I play for you, I would like you to listen for the shimmer sound that the flute makes. I'm going to play a very famous melody by a very famous composer. His name was Ludwig van Beethoven, and this is the Ode to Joy melody. Happy birthday, Beethoven!
That was beautiful, Lori. Gosh, the flute is just so shiny and pretty. And now, thanks to Mrs. Flute for sharing her chocolates from Winans, Mr. Violin is quite hyped up on sugar. Let's head to the chiller, and we can skate to get some of this energy out. Brrr, it's so cold in here. And it seems our friend Miss Oboe is out on the ice today too. She loves to figure skate. However, Mr. Violin almost got in her way while playing hockey, so he'll need to be a little more careful next time. Let's check out the oboe a little bit more with the SSO's principal oboe, Lisa Grove.
Hello, my name is Lisa Grove, and I'm the principal oboist with the Springfield Symphony. An oboist is someone who plays the oboe. The oboe is very hard because it is made from wood. It is also a small instrument compared to other instruments in the orchestra, and because it is small, it plays high. These shiny little buttons and levers are called keys, and that allows the oboist to play different pitches or different notes on the instrument so they don't have to play the same note over and over. Finally, without this reed, I can get no sound from my instrument. Nothing comes out. When I add my special reed called a double reed, it sounds, I can get notes through it. On its own, the reed sounds really silly. But when I put it together, it sounds much better. I hope you've enjoyed learning about the oboe, and I hope to see you at a concert someday soon. Happy birthday, Beethoven!
Thank you, Lisa. The oboe sure does seem like a very sweet and delicate instrument. We had such a great time at the Chiller, but Mr. Violin is ready to get back out into the summer sun. It's time to head to the Springfield Art Museum and see if we can find any more of our friend. Shh! Hey, look! There's Mr. Clarinet. Let's try not to sneak up on him, as he can be easily startled. Mr. Clarinet can be a little nervous and shy, but he loves going to the art museum to enjoy some peace and quiet. Plus, it's a great place for musicians to get inspired. Speaking of musicians, here is the SSO's principal clarinet, Richard York, to tell us about the clarinet.
Hello, I'm Richard York. I'm principal clarinetist with the Springfield Symphony Orchestra. Today I'd like to show you a little bit about my instrument, the clarinet. The clarinet is one of the woodwind instruments, and that means it's a long tube with holes drilled in it that the player can cover with their fingers. And that way we get the different notes on the instrument. There are several other woodwind instruments in the orchestra, the flute, the oboe, the bassoon, and sometimes the saxophone. And they're all built on that same principle. The clarinet sits in the middle of the orchestra with those other woodwinds usually. In the band, the clarinet is one of the larger sections, and the clarinet section takes over the role that the violin section would do in an orchestra to really fill in the ensemble. When I was about 5 years old, my sister started playing the clarinet, and I looked at what she was doing and I said, how do you remember all those keys and what to do with your fingers? Well, it turns out you learn them a little bit at a time, but a basic F scale on the clarinet is quite simple. You simply put the fingers down one at a time. The sound on the clarinet is produced with this reed. It's a thin piece of wood. You can see it's quite flexible at the tip. I can bend it fairly easily. And as I blow into the mouthpiece, the reed is attached to this mouthpiece. As I blow into it, the reed stops and starts the airflow, and that causes the vibration that we call the sound. And then by using different fingerings, I can control that sound. The clarinet is one of the middle-ranged woodwind instruments. It's below the flute, quite a bit below the range of the flute, a little bit below the range of the oboe, and quite a bit above the bassoon, which is the lowest of the woodwinds. So to demonstrate the clarinet in a melody, I'd like to play for you Beethoven's famous Ode to Joy from his Ninth Symphony. Thank you, Beethoven, for all the beautiful music you wrote for the orchestra and for the clarinet.
And thank you, Richard, for playing your clarinet for us today. Whew, we've been to a lot of places already today, but we still have a few more friends to find. But we should take a small intermission just to gain a little energy. Feel free to stretch, take a quick bathroom break, maybe grab a snack, and then we can all get ready for Beethoven's party tonight. Let's start the clock. Welcome back, everyone. Hope everybody was able to have a nice little intermission. It won't be long now until we're partying away at the celebration tonight. Now let's help Mr. Violin gather a few more of our friends before Beethoven's party starts. Mr. Violin thinks we should head to the library first. He's hoping that the new Peter Stafford Wilson biography is available. Let's go. What do you know? Here's Mr. Bassoon. Mr. Bassoon is quite an avid reader, and is always searching for the next bestseller. He seems quite upset, as he wasn't able to find the book on reed making he wanted. While we comfort him, let's learn a little bit about the bassoon from the SSO's principal bassoon, Rachel Young.
Hi everyone, my name is Rachel and I'm the principal bassoonist of the Springfield Symphony Orchestra, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about my bassoon today. So the bassoon is a member of the woodwind family, which includes the flute, clarinet, and oboe as well. And that generally just means the instrument's made out of wood and we use our wind to get the sound, or our air. Now the bassoon is also a member of a smaller family called the double reed family. That is just the bassoon and the oboe and the related instruments in their family. And that just means we start the vibration that makes our sound with a double reed. Now it's a single item here, but it's actually two little pieces of cane, kind of like bamboo, it's a type of wood, that vibrate together real fast and make a little sound. Sounds kind of silly on its own, but when you put it on the instrument, you get a bassoon sound. So that's how I start my sound. Now the bassoon is a very large instrument, as you can see. It would be about 4 feet tall, bottom to top, from the ground. Maybe as tall as you even, probably even taller. However, the actual tube of the instrument is almost twice as long. So after I start my air in the reed, it goes through this big long loop called a bocal, goes all the way down this one side, and then under this cap here, it actually makes kind of a U-turn, and then the tube goes all the way up and out the other side. So the air is a long way to go, and because of that, the bassoon is a very low instrument. So the longer the tube or the larger the instrument, the lower the sound it gets. So this is my lowest note. Yeah, pretty good stuff. Now, the final thing I want to tell you about the bassoon is, you might be noticing I'm sitting on this little seat strap here to hold it up. And there's a couple reasons. One is it's a little heavy, it weighs about 10 pounds. But the other reason is very cool. Bassoonists have very busy thumbs. So I work all 9 keys and this lock here just with my left thumb. And I work all 5 keys down here just with my right thumb. So the seat strap helps hold the instrument up so my thumbs are free to do all that work. On other instruments, they use their thumb to also hold it up because they don't have as many keys. So now I'm going to play for you a little bit so you can hear how the bassoon sounds. Happy birthday, Beethoven!
Thank you, Rachel. It's crazy that you're able to play the bassoon when it's so much taller than you. Well, sadly, the Peter Stafford Wilson biography was checked out at the library by someone else this morning, so we'll have to wait until next week. But we might as well head over to Frank Lloyd Wright's Westcott House to see if we can find any more of our friends. Hey, let's all say bonjour to Mr. Frenchy, short for French horn. He loves to play music on the grounds of the Westcott House for all the visitors. He even loved having the chance to play at Frank Lloyd Wright's birthday last week, who is the designer of the Westcott House. And now he'll get the chance to play for Beethoven's birthday tonight. So, it's about time we learn a little bit about the French horn from the SSO's principal French horn, Sean Vore.
Hi, my name is Sean Vore, principal French horn of the Springfield Symphony. I'd like to share with you my instrument today and tell you a little bit about it. The first thing I want you to know about the French horn is that it's made of brass. Now, brass is a type of metal. It has this yellow goldish color. And not only is my instrument made of brass, but it also explains the family of musical instruments that the French horn is a part of, called the brass family of musical instruments. The next thing I want you to know about the French horn is that I create my sound with a vibration that I cause with my lips. So I take a big breath and I pass air between my lips, I put them together, and I create a buzzing sound. I capture that buzz inside of a metal mouthpiece that then goes inside of the horn, and that's what produces my sound. The next thing I'd like you to know about the French horn is that I use valves to get all the different notes that I have to play. So what a valve is it directs air. Usually it would go straight across like this, but when I press down one of my valves, it rotates. It sends air down one of these tubes. It makes my horn get longer and allows me to play a lot of different notes. The next thing I want you to know about the French horn is that it has a really nice tone. A tone is basically what you hear from a musical instrument. Some tones are bright, some tones are dark. For the horn, it has a very mellow, dark sound. So people tend to like the sound or the tone of the French horn. And the last thing I want you to know about the French horn is look at its shape. It's all coiled up like a giant snail almost. Well, the reason it's shaped like this is because it would be very long if I were to unwrap it. It would be over 12 feet long if I took all these tubes and spread them out. So they had to coil it up like this in order for me to be able to hold it and play the horn. So there's a little bit about my instrument. Hope you've enjoyed it. I'm now going to play for you a piece by Ludwig van Beethoven, his Ode to Joy from his Ninth Symphony. Happy birthday, Beethoven. Bye-bye.
Mr. Violin just can't believe that a French horn can be unraveled to a length of over 12 feet. That's a lot of brass. Speaking of brass, we should probably find the other brass instruments before it starts to get dark. Let's head to the historic Pennsylvania House Museum to see if we can find anyone. Just as we thought, there's our good friend Mr. Trumpet. He likes to hang out at the Pennsylvania House and play patriotic tunes in the front yard as people drive by. However, he better wrap it up and get to Cuss Auditorium for Beethoven's party, as you can't have a good party without some trumpets. You can bet the SSO's principal trumpet, Daniel Lewis, knows a thing or two about this brass instrument. Let's listen in.
Hi, My name is Daniel Lewis, and I'm the principal trumpet player of the Springfield Symphony Orchestra, and I'm here to tell you a little bit about my instrument. Now, the first thing we want to know about the trumpet is that it's a brass instrument. We call it a brass instrument because it's made out of brass, which is just a specific type of metal. The trumpet is a member of the brass family of instruments, which includes the trumpet, the trombone, the French horn, and the tuba. All those instruments are made out of that same metal, which we call brass. Now, the next thing we need to know about the trumpet is that they're also wind instruments, and that means we play them by using our breath or our air. So it's as simple as breathing in and breathing out through the trumpet. Now, it's a little bit more complicated than that, because if I just breathe in and blow air through my trumpet, you're not going to hear any notes. You're not going to hear any sound. So it'll sound a little bit like this. So I did just that. I breathed in and I breathed out, and you didn't get any notes. That's because there's one more step that's missing in the process. And to get notes to come out of our brass instruments, we do what we call buzzing our lips. So we have to vibrate our lips. Any instrument you see in the orchestra, they must have a vibration to produce the sound. For trumpet and for brass instruments, we vibrate our lips. You can't see it when we're playing, but that's what's going on with our mouth to make the sound come out of the trumpet. And it looks a little bit like this. If I do that into my mouthpiece, if I do that same thing into the trumpet, the other important part of the trumpet that we need to talk about, that you would want to know about, are these buttons right here that you see. We call these, they are buttons, but we call them valves, just because of how they work to redirect the air through the instrument. But basically what you need to know, if I don't use the valves, I can only play a few different notes. So I won't push any of the valves. So I could play about 5 or 6 or 7 notes that I can play. And there's not a whole lot of music that you can play with just those 6 or 7 notes. So when we have these valves, it allows me to play all of the notes in between. Now I'm going to play for you Ode to Joy, which is from Beethoven's 9th Symphony.
Thanks, Daniel. That just leaves one other brass instrument on the guest list for the party tonight, Mr. Trombone. He's always hanging out at the COhatch downtown. Let's go see what he's up to. Okay, how did Mr. Trombone get on the roof? Maybe he used his slide to propel himself up there? Actually, maybe we just shouldn't know. Well, at least we can be entertained while we enjoy our lunch here at the COhatch. It's such a calming atmosphere here, we could listen to Mr. Trombone play on the roof all day. However, he needs to get down soon so we can head to the party. While he's getting down, let's learn about the trombone from the SSO's trombone, Tony Weichel.
Hello everyone, my name is Tony Weichel. I play second trombone with the Springfield Symphony Orchestra. And today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the trombone. So the trombone is a member of the low brass family. So that family includes trombone, tuba, and euphonium and baritone. The tuba is the really big instrument with a big bell and it has buttons you press. The euphonium or baritone is like a smaller tuba, and then there's the trombone. And we're called the low brass because we tend to play lower notes than the other brass instruments. And when you go to see an orchestra concert, you'll tend to see us in the back right-hand corner as you look at the stage, so you know exactly where to spot us. So just like all the other brass instruments, we play a trombone by using our air to buzz our lips, and then that buzz goes into the mouthpiece, which comes off, and then that buzz goes from the mouthpiece into the trombone and acts like a megaphone to put the sound out. Okay, so let's just kind of demonstrate that. You can do the regular buzzing at home if you like. So we blow the air and we buzz our lips. Okay, but then we blow that buzz into the mouthpiece. Okay, but then we connect the mouthpiece to the trombone, and then that gets us a note. Pretty cool. So like the woodwind instruments, they have reeds that vibrate. We have our lips that vibrate. So that's pretty unique to brass instruments. So the trombone, as you can see, is kind of wrapped up here. If you unwrapped it and stretched it out, it would be 9 feet long. So if you think about that, 9 feet is like 3 yards on a football field. It's pretty long. So it's a good thing that it's wrapped up for us so that we can sit down and play it without having to really stretch. Another unique thing about the trombone is that we use a slide instead of valves like the other brass instruments. That gives us the ability to do very unique things. Like in a cartoon or a funny movie, you might hear a trombone do a gliss to kind of show somebody slipping on a banana peel. Okay, so you might hear something like... and then one more fun fact about the trombone is that trombone in French means paperclip. So now you can go to your family or your friends or your teachers and you can say, hey, I know French. I know that trombone means paperclip. You can pick up a paperclip and say, here's your trombone. Happy birthday, Beethoven.
Wow, the trombone sure is long. You would think that trombone players get tired of moving that slide all the time. Well, now that we have all of our brass instrument friends, we should just have one more group of instruments to find. The percussion instruments. This includes the drums, cymbals, timpani, bells, triangle, xylophone, and more. Luckily, they all like to hang out with each other. So let's head over to the Gammon House to see if they're all hanging out there. Yep, just like we expected. Here's all the percussion instruments hanging out by the Gammon House. The Gammon House was built in 1850 and owned by two incredibly courageous people, George and Sarah Gammon. They risked their lives by making their home a shelter to runaway slaves, as the Gammon House is one of only 3 existing Ohio stops on the Underground Railroad owned by a free person of color. The house has such an historical legacy, and all the percussion instruments love creating awesome music to celebrate this historic landmark. Let's learn a little more about the percussion instruments from the SSO's percussionist, Mark Smorelli.
Hi, boys and girls. My name is Mark Smorelli, and I'm a percussionist for the Springfield Symphony Orchestra. And I play percussion instruments. What are percussion instruments? Percussion instruments are any instrument that you can hit with a stick or a mallet with your hands, shake, or scrape. It can be all sorts of different instruments. You may see a few of them in here. In the back, I have instruments that you can hit with your hands, which are bongos and conga drums, the larger ones. I have another instrument over here. This is a big instrument similar to this one. This one is called a vibraphone, and there are many others. The instrument that I'm going to show you today in particular is an instrument called the bells. The bells also has a second name which is very popular. It's called glockenspiel. A glockenspiel is a very popular word that they use with symphony orchestras all around. And it's a word that comes from Germany, from the German language, glockenspiel. So they're both the same. This is a glockenspiel, or this is a set of bells. And you can see that it's made of metal. Each one of these bars represents a specific note or pitch. And the larger the bars or the notes, the lower the sound. And the smaller the bars or notes, the higher the sound. This instrument by itself is kind of a high sounding instrument compared to the real big instruments that you find in the orchestra. And you hit this instrument with different kinds of mallets. Here's a pair of mallets that I have that are bell mallets or glockenspiel mallets, and they are made of plastic, a very hard material with a round, it's a stick with a round ball. This stick is rattan, it's very similar to wood, but it has a little bit of flexibility to it. And the hard surface is plastic, and it's the round ball or the head of the mallet. I also have some brass mallets, which give a little bit brighter and maybe even a louder sound depending. And they sound very similar to the plastic. And then another pair, you could even use some hard rubber. Now these have wooden sticks, so they don't bend as much. They sound a little softer on the bells. But you may have heard this song, which I'm going to play for you now. It's called Ode to Joy by the famous composer Ludwig van Beethoven.
Whew. That's everybody on the list. Thanks for helping Mr. Violin find all his instrument friends for the party. Now it's time to head back to the Clark State Performing Arts Center so we can get Beethoven's birthday party started. This is so great! What could be better than celebrating Beethoven's birthday by listening to his Symphony No. 9? We even have the Springfield Symphony Chorale joining in on the fun, as you can't perform Ode to Joy without some singers. This party is so awesome, and it wouldn't be possible without your help today. Thank you for helping Mr. Violin find all our instrument friends around Springfield today. We hope you learned a lot, but most importantly, you had fun. The Springfield Symphony Orchestra would like to wish you all a happy Kidsfest, and we hope to see you in person in 2021. Please stay safe and healthy, and oh yeah, happy birthday, Beethoven!